Microphone, microphone. Hello, everybody. While we're waiting for the proctor to show up and make... You're the proctor. Hi. The screen looks like this. Okay. I plugged in my USB-C thing. It seems to be a version of it. You know, a box of it is showing up. And then I have my mic working, as you can see. So I just need the slides to be big on this screen. That's correct.
So I have been given very specific instructions to not do it myself and call the AV people.
Okay. While we're calling the AV people, let's say you're from Washington, D.C., and your flight is tonight at 9:30 p.m. You're in Pasadena, California. Your talk ends at 12:30 p.m. So you have to get to LAX for a 9:30 flight. What do you do in Pasadena or between here and LAX with math is hard? 7 hours? I'm a real neurotic airport person. So like I'm a 2 hours, hour and 30-minute guy. Raise your hand if you have a do something in Pasadena this Sunday afternoon idea. Anybody? Anybody? Yes? Okay. Shopping on Colorado and movie theaters. See, I'm already following the instructions to repeat questions that I'm asked. Okay, good. Off to a good start. What about the Huntington? Do the Huntington. The whole thing. And it's like botanical gardens and also kind of a museum, and there's peacocks. Okay. Okay. 2 hours? 3 hours? Like, what should I budget? Yeah, like, okay. Oh yeah. I'm a sicko, and I was going to do the A line to the Union Station and then do the flyaway bus that takes you from Union to LAX. Okay, getting a lot of, the most positive response to that out of anything I've said, so, okay. Everybody's like, don't get in a car. Which just like, I don't want to be like an East Coast stereotype, but that's what I thought too. I understand the intricacies of California car culture, but like, I also just don't want to be in a vehicle with anybody for 90 minutes. Like my wife and I get angry at each other after 90 minutes in a car together, so. All right. Technology. Okay. Is that also a great idea? I was supposed to get tickets ahead of time also, and I don't think This is my understanding. Like the museum that refuses to explain itself to you. Okay. I like that the guy in the Aphex Twin t-shirt was like, go to the Museum of Jurassic Technology. Absolutely. Endorsement. Can I boost the treble on this? They're like diagnosing one thing. Okay. I could also hold it closer to my face. Okay. Ooh, I'm going to be gated. I will move it. Oh, hello. My name is Kevin Purdy. Social Security number 10. Okay. This is just me speaking. Or more bassy. Oh, boost. Put me in TV mode. Yeah, do some enhanced dialogue. Okay. Okay. We've got slides on the thing. I am speaking. People are liking the treble. Are we all good for tech stuff? Gotta take that as a yes. Okay. I always wanted to say this, but we'll give folks just like one more minute. I think everyone who lived through 2020, whenever they hear the phrase, we'll give folks just one more minute, it's gonna have like a traumatic effect on them at some point, like just an endless series of video calls where we're giving folks one more minute. Like, I think about that all the time. Okay. Hello, everybody. Thanks for attending this talk. I hope you've all had a good time this weekend, and it's time to talk about punching through firewalls without punching holes. As I said to some folks who got here early, I didn't name this talk. I'm the fill-in for another speaker here. I would not have created a slide talk that has a metaphysical question in the title, but here we go. We're going to talk a little bit about getting from one computer to another for fun reasons. I am not Alex Kretschmar, so I just want to get that out of the way in case some of you are looking at me and are like, oh, he doesn't sound as British, like maybe he just doesn't have as much beard. I am not that man. Yes. Can I put the what? Oh, no. That's true. This would be quite a pen test. No, I'm not Alex Kretschmar. I am Kevin Purdy. This is my dog, Howard. So I'm glad to hear to talk about Naturversal and other such things as home labs and, things like that. So I have been writing on the internet for a very long time. I used to work for Lifehacker back in the pre-childhood wrestling star ruining my business days. Yep. I wrote 5,883 posts for Lifehacker back then, which was something I did. And I also have worked for Wirecutter. I reviewed lots of stuff. Feel free to grab me after the talk and we can talk about cutting boards or recycled toilet paper or toilet brushes or e-bikes or antivirus software or other stuff I just had to research and write about for them. I've also written for Fast Company. I had a few pieces in Wired and more before SCaLE, which I work at because of the t-shirt. I worked for Ars Technica. Also, when people look at me with a blank look, I'm like Wired's nerdy cousin. Like Wired's cousin who went all the way through grad school. So I wrote for them for about 3 years, and maybe my favorite beat there was the Linux kernel mailing list, where I would read just 9,000 words that were about something. And I would try to translate it to a general audience, like what's going on inside the LKML, and sometimes it would be great. Like sometimes it'd be like there was a lot of stuff about Rust. I know a lot about Rust now without wanting to or actually intending to because of how much went on there. So as you can see, I've just been a professional kind of dilettante for a long time. And then I arrived at SCaLE, and they hired me to write some stuff for them. And so that's what I've been doing for SCaLE. I've been trying to, chords. I write about things that I think will get people interested in checking it out. This is the nature of marketing, but also they seem to have forgotten they hired me sometimes and they don't really tell me what to do, so I'm like, well, did you see that you can put SCaLE on a jailbroken Kindle? Did you know that you can obviate the need for a Rust desk server if you just use SCaLE to connect the two ends of the Rust desk? Did you know that you don't have to ever remember your SSH keys anymore if you use SCaLE for that? Things like this. This talk is not about SCaLE, but I just want to let you know what I've been up to. How to create an exit node for, helping your parents, for being able to, get around international kind of bad government restrictions, or in my case, watching Buffalo Bills games from Washington, D.C. by putting one in your house. And I also am maybe the biggest proponent of Chromebooks at my company. I always feel they get a bad rap. They are the most popular Linux laptop, and we should all respect that. All right. But what I started at SCaLE, I didn't have a home lab, and now I have a Sony's My First Home Lab. This is Alex's home lab on the left. He sent me this picture, and between the projector and me not actually knowing what these things are, maybe I can provide a better version of it somewhere, but as you can see, it's just a corner of a basement, or in my case, it is the shelves behind me. I should stay in one place while I'm talking for the video. That is a Ugreen NAS with 3 M2 drives loaded into it to create a RAID kind of thing. This is pre-AI memory prices, just so you all know. I'm not that well paid. This is a Synology B Station backup. Basically, it's just taking backups from the NAS and throwing the most important stuff into S3 storage somewhere or deep storage. That is a NUC from a dentist's office or something. That is running Home Assistant. Home Assistant is my favorite self-hosted thing. I give it its own bare metal because it deserves it. And then over in the corner there is a 02W whose whole job is to make the Brother Wireless printer accessible. That's all it does. It has, it has the worst existence out of anything in my life. I like, all you do is wait for my wife to send you a 30-page PDF. That's your whole job. You can sleep as much as you want, you have to print things. Anything can be a home lab though, you know, like pretty much anything you can still afford or find or scavenge, especially these days, can be a home lab, a Raspberry Pi, a Mac Mini that you're repurposing, like I said, you know, a little HP or Lenovo whatever that you find on eBay for 150 bucks, or a laptop without a screen. Over on the left is a laptop framework, the original version, like the V1 or whatever, and I just didn't need that laptop anymore, and so I basically took it and put it inside this cool shell from Cooler Master. Framework is here, and I don't work for them or anything, but like, more laptops should be able to be turned into home servers. That's my stated opinion. So once you have your little device and you can put stuff on it, you can do all kinds of self-hosting. I started at SCaLE with 0 containers, June 2nd. March 4th, 33 containers. People, like, it's really addictive. And like, once you kind of, it just grows in your brain, like the idea that you can do things. I'm just gonna do a quick rundown, starting clockwise from the upper left. Who here has heard of dumbware? Yeah. Dumbware is, they literally just make like single purpose apps like Dumb Assets, which is like, here's the manual for your fridge, here's a reminder to change the water filter in your fridge, here's like the model number of your fridge, and like just real dad stuff. Dad non-gendered. I'm just saying like as a like gender neutral dad brain stuff where you're like, what is the name of the lawnmower? What kind of oil does it take? Love it. On the upper right is Rally with 3 L's. That is a what time are we meeting for movie night app, or what time could everyone come for our birthday celebration thing. I think like it's like some amount of money for up to 5 users, and each user can create an infinite amount of like these things. And I just like giving money to open source developers for their cool projects. Bottom right is Sterling PDF. It's just a PDF toolkit without having to upload PDFs to random sites on the internet because you're running out of time, or use other PDF tools. On the bottom left, this is the one that everyone knows according to my time at SCaLE, Image. Image replaces essentially Google Photos. It allows you to securely back up your photos to a server. You can do AI scans on it so it can find dog, bread, etc., whatever you want to do. Or even people you can tag and say, here's all my photos of my friend Raj. On the middle left is Fresh RSS. As noted, I worked for Lifehacker in 2008-ish. So of course, like Google Reader being canceled was the biggest crime any company's ever committed in my time. No, I'm not standing by that statement. Google Reader being killed was one of the worst things that I saw happen on the internet, and so I have my own RSS reader that I'm self-hosting. I love it. And yeah, we're back to dumbware. Okay. I thought this talk was about firewalls and parts. Me too. So I'm here in beautiful Pasadena, California. I want to access my dumb assets. I want to access my PDF tool. How do I get back to it? What's the best way to get back to it? It's in my house, and I have to go through all these hops to get there. So apologies to those of you who know a little bit about this, but before we can get to how do we get to computer, we must ask ourselves, what is computer? Computer do thing, computer have app, computer be in room, you're in the room, that's great. Like, this is a great system right here. This is one of the most secure systems we've ever had. Computer do thing in room with you. Now there's a few computer. Now we can connect them. I can send files to other computer can send a few files to me. We're all on the same university campus or DARPA research lab. This is fine. There's no reason anyone would do something other than April Fools to do something to my computer on this network. Cool. Uh-oh. Now there are many computer, and some of them are in different rooms and different states. This is a problem, but there's not so many computer that is problem. We can still give them addresses and connect to each other. Seems okay so far. Uh-oh. Now there's lots of computer in lots of states. Maybe different internet providers. Maybe it's not just a wire put out by the DoD anymore. Maybe there's actually lots of them. Okay, well, we've got 4.2 billion addresses, so that's good. We should be able to give each one of these computers 100 dot something dot something dot something. That should be good. 4.2 billion computer. Oops, skipped one. Okay. Some of these computers should not be talking to us, it turned out. There's a young man from Massachusetts who proved to all of us that we should not have computer open. We need to make sure that the right computers are talking to the right computers. We're going to start putting up firewalls. We don't really have a term for what we need exactly, but when a fire starts in a building and we want to make sure it spreads from one room to the other, we put in a firewall. So that's what we're doing. You can't talk to this computer unless this computer has talked to you, essentially. Like, or there's rules. We're just going to create a bunch of rules. That's enough computer. Should be good. Oh no. Oh God, everyone got computer. There are lots and lots of computers. There might even be more than 4.2 billion computers now. I don't know how this happened. I thought people liked being outside, but now we have more than 4.2 billion computer. What are we going to do? I can't just guess the address for that computer in England I want to get to. I need, oh yeah, okay. Lots of computers in one space. I need to get that computer. Maybe those computers don't even have room for each of them to have an address. So they're going to have this little blue part at the front. Maybe that can just be the address and they have like a sub address so I can get to them some way. Okay, right, good. IPv4, we've run out of addresses, but the good news is that we can figure out a way to say, okay, you're trying to reach this computer. I know how to get to it. Just ask me. I'm the concierge. Thank you for coming to the Ritz-Carlton. I will show you to the computer you would like to get to. This will work out great. You know, you're trying to reach, you have 192.168.1.2. You want to go to 400 point whatever. I will figure out a way to make sure that your address is translated to them and back to you. This should work out okay. But mostly you're just like pulling web pages, right? Like you don't need to come back and open up a port or do any, good, okay, got it. Right. So you're here in Pasadena. You need to get back to 22, the SSH port on your computer at home, the standard SSH port, thank you. And I guess you could just like open the port, right? Like we can just open the port because like who knows how to get to my home, like who's guessing where Washington DC computer is? Like should be fine. Last week, before I came to this conference, a writer on the XDA developers website set up an SSH honeypot. So this is the most recent data I could get for you. An SSH honeypot is, for those who don't know, it's like just an SSH instance you open up to the public internet with a port forward and say, like, it's just like decent security, maybe like a bad password, not even a good password, just like, okay. In about 7 days' time, they saw 29,282 interactions with that port from 447 unique IP addresses, and they were just smashing every password that is out in the dark web, everything that you could possibly have. Like there's just like password 1 password, Raspberry Pi Pokemon 2, like just smashing and smashing. And some of them were known addresses and techniques that were connected with NoahBot, which is essentially like a traversal virus, and then IRC worms, which like break in, and then they say, hey, I got in. I'm going to let an IRC channel in somewhere else in the world know that I got in so we can communicate what happens next. What happens next will be great. And Telegram grabs, where like it gets into the SSH, it immediately starts looking for the known folders that host Telegram data, because they're like, well, people put all kinds of fun stuff in Telegram, so let's go grab that. So we don't open the port. It turns out opening port bad. Should not do it. It seems like there's people scanning all the time to find port. Okay, so I'll close my ports. Awesome. All right. However, now I have opposite problem. Now I can't get into my port, but also the bots can't get in. I can't get in. I guess we're back to man in room with computer by himself. Okay. Well, that's not what we wanted to get to, but that kind of feels like where we're at. So what are we going to do now? Well, if you are, let's say you were starting a new company today and you were going to figure out a way to fix this. You want people to connect to their stuff, but you don't want them to open ports, and you need to figure out a way to deal with the fact that there's more computers than there are IP addresses. So, and I promise I will talk about IPv6 at some point. I know, but like for now, we live in the world. We are same person, same river. What are we going to do? So here's the basic problem. A standard firewall, like the most basic version of it, the Windows, the whatever, the UFW, is you from computer A or 222 say, I want a website from theverge.com, and for some reason the Verge is at 7777. You want something back from my home lab over there. That's a better example. it will not let you through because it hasn't seen you ask for that port. You send a packet out, you try to get something back, it doesn't know that because you haven't reached out to it. Firewalls will only accept traffic back on the same port that it went out through. So if you're at 2222 and you send out a thing from port 20, you can only get it back on that. But again, you are not actually at just Kevin's address in the world, you are behind, in my case, Verizon's ISP router, I'm behind my home router, and I'm not actually that address when I go out into the internet. So what are we gonna do? I have to be able to convince my home lab to send something back to me, but I can't get through it, I don't wanna open the port, so how are we gonna find each other? The first layer of tricks is called stun, which stands for standard, oh crud. I made a flashcard. Raj, stun? I know. It stands for Standard Session Traversal Utilities for NAT, thank you. Thank you, Cosmic Text Editor, sorry about that. There's a lot of acronyms. All right, so basically stun is a server that exists out there, and they're public ones, and you can run your own, or you can do whatever, and it says like, okay, Kevin's server is 192.168.1.50, and it reached out on port 12345. But when it came out of the pipeline, when it got past my home router, and when it got out through Verizon, Northeast Hub, whatever, here's what it actually looked like it came from. 203.0.113.7.45.123. Cool, okay, well, I don't know how that happened to you, man. Like, hope you're feeling okay, but okay, so that's your new IP address from your home router. Same thing here in Pasadena. I'm gonna reach out from my laptop over the hotel Wi-Fi. I go out, I make it through Hyatt's router and through whatever our regional hub is here, and it's like, here's what that looks like. You're actually at blah, 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 .46759. And so stun just literally says to each other, okay, you both have arrived here, here's what your IP addresses actually look like if you're going the other way. All right, so that's, and then I explained this all before I gave you the diagram, sorry. But that's what it looks like when you run a stun server. You basically are just saying, like, who am I? It responds back with, this is who you are. It's very metaphysical if you think about it. Don't think about it. So here's what you do. So you can't necessarily set that up perfectly, like, okay, you'll both see each other at the same time and you'll go back through those addresses and it'll be great. What you have to do, sometimes you have to do is you have to set up a coordination server and you grab a UDP packet and you say, okay, on 3, we're both gonna launch a UDP packet from either end and roughly in the same 30-second window, and we're gonna launch them at each other and then they'll both go through and then both firewalls will be like, ah, I recognize that packet, it's from an address. Ready, 1, 2, 3, woof, and you like both chuck them out there. And if you feel bad about like data conservancy, those packets might not land. You actually are gonna like drill a bunch of them out there. But eventually both of them will kind of get through in a similar timing and the firewalls will be like, these two guys, they're crazy, but we're gonna let them hang out. Cool, we're through. That was easy. Like that's the easiest version of this is that like we're out of IPv4 addresses. We need to know who people are when they finally arrive at the party. Here's who they are, connect, good to go. All right. And again, you do not have to actually make the connection, you just have to put some traffic through. You just have to put it through enough so that the two firewalls see each other. Now there's a problem. Not everyone is cool with that level of security. Some people are like, you could do some bad stuff in there. A worm could get in there and say like, hey, open up 1, 2, 3, 4, I got some cool ideas. And you're like, I need a better firewall than that. I want that every time the data goes out, I want you to randomize the port it goes out through. So you are trying to reach 777, it says, okay, here's who you are, you're 222, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you want to go to a slightly different thing, and it's like, well, this time you're 6, 7, 8, 9. You reached out to a different thing, you got a different port, and so God bless you if you want to get back through here and get through this firewall, because I'm just changing it up every time you go out. So there's, that's happening on the bottom, that's a nice NAT, allowing things to kind of go through and see each other, send back and forth. At the top is what it looks like when the server doesn't like who you are. Because you sent out through that way, you thought you were coming back this way, and the server's like, I don't recognize this other number, I don't understand what's going on there. That's one bad version. Another version is, if any of you have ever looked in the docs for why something doesn't connect, every company on earth has told you not to double NAT. I spent my entire career not really knowing what this meant. I was like, okay, why would I buy 2 routers? Like, Verizon gave me one, I'm not gonna set up a second one. You can accidentally do it to yourself. That's why they're always telling you not to double NAT yourself. This can happen to you without your knowledge of it, because you can be inside what they call CGNAT, which is carrier grade NAT, which is, we are so out of addresses that actually we can't even really give every household an IP address. We just have to give like your block in Virginia an IP address or something like that. Like we're gonna bundle people together. They can all have one IP address, and then you can have a port for each one that like needs its own little port, but we are going to send them all out through the internet. Thanks for using T-Mobile. We are completely out of room. What that looks like, so like that would be okay if everything you were doing went out through the internet and went out to that, and you could do that kind of standard stun trick where you like observe what the IP address is, inform each other, do the UDP trick back and forth. But like sometimes you might literally just be in the same T-Mobile block as someone else, and the routers, and sometimes CGNAT is not set up to handle that. They're like, well, what do you mean you're inside the network? Like, what is that bad? Like, are you supposed to be inside that network? And so you try to send a packet out, go back around, and like if maybe my neighbor and I are on the same CGNAT, the packet may not route correctly through the CGNAT because it's actually trying to go out through the internet and back through, and it doesn't work very well. You can solve this, but it's not always going to work. All right. So now we've arrived at the hard part, which is that they have made things so hard for us that we are going to have to trick them. We are going to have to trick the T-Mobiles and the Verizons and the Hyatt Regencies of the world by figuring out what the ports are, despite them refusing to tell us what they are. So who here has heard of the birthday paradox? Great. You're going to know it more than I am. But essentially, I failed out of computer science in college because I hit CS250, which was advanced database structures. And I was really good at the lower level stuff, like make JavaScript look cool. But then I got to CS250 and they're like, how good are you at math? I'm like, I'm great. And they're like, and then I did a test, they're like, you're not very good at math. So essentially the birthday paradox, the layman's version I can give of it, and raise your hand if you would like to clarify what I'm saying more than I'm doing it. You know, if we just open up every port we think could possibly be the connection to our home lab, and we hit it on that firewall, the firewall's like, awesome, I have found the port scanner. You are blocked forever. Can't do that. You don't want to scan every single port. How are we going to figure out what port possibly could be the way back through here? If you don't have to actually do every single port on both sides, if each of you can kind of do some of the ports, you can use math, and you can kind of square root the amount of problems, the amount of tries that you have to do. If you have a certain number of random probes on each side, by kind of following that progression, you can actually reduce the number of ports you actually have to probe, and you can arrive at a gentlemanly number of probe scans you have to do before you get to it. Anybody? Okay, whatever. We're not here to talk about math. You can do the birthday paradox. This is really well documented. Check it out after the talk if you want to. We wrote about it a little bit on our blog, but you can do what I call the Halo and Zoom set, which is there's always a UPnP toggle on consumer grade hardware, and it is almost never explained to you by the router maker, and you're like, what is UPnP? Universal plug and play, and then there's better versions of it down the road, like NatPMP and PCP, where essentially you say, okay, I need to open a port, but I am inside the firewall and I'm asking to open the port. I'm only going to do it while the connection is alive so that I can play Halo against my buddy Timbo. Okay? Just open the Halo port, do it from in here. If you stop getting packets from me showing that I'm absolutely owning him with a Scorpion tank, you can close the connection, but then now the port was only open for that one purpose, for that one time. Thank you so much. I'm UPnP, or I'm NatPMP or PCP. So those work. Like you can actually kind of use them if you have software that knows how to like access it and request it from the router. The problem is that lots of folks are like, don't turn on UPnP. It's a terrible idea. And they're not empirically wrong. There were security vulnerabilities for UPnP back in the 2000s or 1990s. Like, it's not perfect at all, but like, it is a toolbox that you can use, you can access and pull things from. And then there are side channels, which are a little bit outside the scope of this talk, but like your software could say, okay, I'm going to run a server that is just for computers to talk to each other about how they're gonna meet up later. I'm going to run a dating service for UDP ports. You can contact me and say, hey, I'm trying to reach Pasadena. I think that I think that this is what my IP address looks like. Do you know how to, like, can you figure out how to get to me? Here's all the ways I've seen along the trace route to Pasadena. What do you think? What's the way in? What IP address should I try to hit? So you can actually just kind of, instead of dumbly throwing ports out or hoping that things are gonna go well, you just kind of toss them out. I did not start a timer, I'm so sorry. So those are all tricks you could do. How do you know which one to do? This is what ICE is. ICE stands for, anybody? Interactive, oh wow, 100%. Congrats, that was really good. So ICE is like, this is our series of protocols where you try every trick in your bag. You're like, are you both on IPv6? No, absolutely not, almost never. But sometimes actually things are set up with IPv6. IPv6, the really short version, is much longer number, not just 4 segments, not just 4.2 billion. I don't remember the number of IPv6 addresses. It might just be the heat death of the universe, but it's like a lot of addresses that are very complicated, but each one is just its thing. You don't need ports, you don't need to segment them into, into NATs. You can just say, this is computer named this is computer named this, connect each other. And if you don't like each other, that's fine, but that's where you're going to reach each other. There's no need to do kind of weird tricks. So that could work. It could turn out that it's just on the same LAN, and your software could be like, you're so lazy. Why did you even call me? You can just reach each other on the same subnet. This is so stupid. You can try stun, as we talked about. You can do one mapped by UPnP or PMP2 or PCP, those other kind of open a port for Halo tricks. And you can also just do static port forwards. Sometimes this is totally okay. I will talk about one that we kind of lightly recommend later. But yeah, so you can, this is the system by running through everything to see can we make these packets talk? And then sometimes you gotta do a relay. You gotta say, okay, sometimes networks like humans, they're just jerks. You're just never going to get around them. There's enterprise firewall, symmetric NAT, carrier grade NAT that explicitly allows hairpinning. Hairpinning is coming back inside and trying to avoid going out to the internet again. Hotel conference Wi-Fi, it just hates you sometimes. Sometimes some networks just block UDP because they think it's I don't know, they're kind of like a weird border state or something. And then certain cloud gateways and certain default configurations are absolutely no, you can't get through our NAT traversal. Everything going out is gonna be randomized completely, within 30-second windows. You'll never get out. So that's what NAT traversal is. It is optimistic packet scam combined with careful observation of which packets make it through. ChatGPT said that if I said this at the SCaLE conference, everyone would laugh. Awesome. So I rewrote it, which is what you should do. And I call it genially FA and responsibly FO. You just send stuff out, you see what's gonna happen, and you try your best, and you learn lessons from it, and occasionally build it into your software. There are other tricks. There is you as an organization contacting FreeBSD and saying, could we please make pfSense not do hard symmetric NAT on UDP by default? And FreeBSD is that's a pretty good idea. Actually, okay, that could be a default setting. And you're great, we will patch it, we'll sponsor the patch, we can code it. Thank you so much. And so that will trickle in eventually, and now everyone who's behind a pfSense router, unless they explicitly say, no, I really hate UDP, you can't have a solid address, that's one way. You could have a pandemic. Everyone in the world is suddenly trying to make peer-to-peer connections between Zoom, and they're playing Among Us on their Switch, and everyone is, remember Among Us? Remember the little blobs? Oh. So everyone in the world could start trying to make peer-to-peer connections, and you could get that QA feedback to the device makers and router makers and hardware and be actually, maybe these super hard tricks that people are constantly hitting our support tickets about are a bad idea. Corporate talk, you could, if you were a company that was putting together all this stuff, you could just make a peer relay that people can put together themselves. You could make one of your, in our case, a node on your tailnet, you could say, I designate you as the peer relay. You are the Mac Mini sitting at the front of my network. You will have UDP port, whatever, like 40,000 or something. You'll have that one open because the only thing that port does is listen for me to get back to my home lab. And you know, if that works, like let's set it up. Raj, who is in the back there, he wrote a post for our blog about being in India and trying to reach back to a home lab in Minnesota. That's a lot of hops, and there's weird things about like the way that a lot of the nation of India's networks are set up that make that even trickier. So that's a good post. And so yeah, that is Naturversal. That is what we're trying to do. That is what anyone's trying to do when they're trying to connect you to Among Us, Zoom, your Tailnet, things like that. And that is how I'm able to, from this conference, access my stuff. My wife can ask me, when is the next bus coming? And I can show her the app that I built that like taps into the WMATA API and tells her when the next bus is coming, better than Google Maps does. So that's how I'm able to have 33 containers running on my home, and I can reach all of them. Home labs rock. And then I'm gonna open up for questions while I take a glass of water. Thank you so much. With the caveat that I am an English major. So, you know, I can answer questions. I have some backup in the back. I pulled in a ringer. But if you have any questions about Naturversal or anything I spoke about, hit me up. Yes. Is that peer relay feature you mentioned? It is. You are setting up one specific node on your tailnet with a UDP port and saying, you know, you're for the purposes of Naturversal, you're the way in. Subnet routing in SCaLE is like saying, okay, you've accessed me, and now you can access everything on 192.168 / however you want to divide that up, like everything from 0 to 100 or something. Yeah, it is different in terms of like scope and scale. You are specifically creating one node that is for the purposes of making the connection versus putting one node in there that can connect you to other stuff that's not running, stuff like that. Yeah, good question though, thank you. Anyone else with a question? Otherwise, you're gonna get some time back. I don't want to threaten you with a good time here, but anybody else have any questions about home lab stuff or want to recommend anything? Tell a Naturversal story. Tell I opened a port on my computer story. Anybody? Yes.
I actually have a funny open port thing. I basically was
Well, now I'm not going to repeat that. Here you go.
Oh, sorry. I was running like a test application to proof of concept something for work, basically. And I had opened a port to like an internal machine that was running the application, and it wasn't really secure, but it was only temporary. And of course I forgot about it and I left it there. And somehow I wasn't running the application anymore. I was running just a web server, and it was browsing like a network volume on my local network that I was using internally, and somehow Google crawled it. And basically, I got an email from somebody who basically was like, "Hey, can you put this file back up? It's not there anymore. I was trying to download this thing," and I'm like, "Dude, how did you get in here? And essentially, it was a non-standard port. It was like, I don't know how Google crawled it, but I was searchable, and yeah. Anyways, don't do that.
That is amazing. The real life equivalent is like your neighbor texting and be like, "How are you enjoying Stranger Things?" That's really good. Anybody else have a question or a open port story or anything like that? Okay. Thank you all so much for coming, and I really appreciate your time.
Okay.
And then if you want to slip it in your back pocket, and then whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Oh, yeah, this is a little hot. Impromptu introduction. Yeah, so I built an AI running coach, and I'm going to tell you about the process. It's kind of interesting, but I think there's also some lessons that apply to just in general, building software like specifically for your own use case, and what can be learned from that. So this is Lake Mazenah, and this is Lake Mazenah, and it is a couple hours away from where I live. I'm having an issue here. Let's try this. And apparently it is, besides the Great Lakes, one of the deepest lakes in Canada, where I live. And it's beautiful, and they used to think that there was a monster that lived in it, or so they made up. And it turned out to be a rock pike, which is just like a very big eel-looking fish. But so then a race started there called the Monsters of Mazenah, named after it. And the Monsters of Mazenah is a ultramarathon. It is the, their tagline is Canada's shortest ultramarathon, because it is like exactly 1 kilometer longer than a marathon. But it looks like this. It's on the Canadian Shield. There's no real dirt. It's just like rocks and tree roots and whatever, and it's a single track race. And I have been going in it for a couple years now. And every year, my friend here, Malcolm, convinces me to sign up for it. He's very outdoorsy, and he's like, "Hey, let's do this." And it's springtime, and I'm like, "Yeah, I could sign up for this race, and I can spend the spring and the summer getting in shape, stop spending all my time sitting around the computer. This will be my forcing function, will be to race with Malcolm." And so every year I do this. I don't get as much exercising done as I think. Sometimes I really, the last couple months, put in a lot of effort, try to build my speed up, and every year Malcolm beats me. And it's gotten frustrating for me. Malcolm's not even that fast. We're both just like mediocre runners, but I'd really like to beat him. So I just finished, in this last September, I did the 10K version of the race along with Malcolm, and I trained pretty hard in the 2 months before the race, which is not sufficient apparently, and I twisted my ankle, but he still beat me. He beat me by like 7 minutes in the 10K version, and I said to myself, listen, I need to come up with a way to crush him, right? I know it's great to think about health goals and getting active and whatever, but the thing that is motivating me is I want to see him behind me, right? I want to be at the finish line while he's running. It's just going to make me feel better about things. So I came up with a plan. All I really need to do is run more, like not do it in the 2 months before the race, but do it continuously throughout the year. And I had just finished the race. So if I start from that September, we're signing up next year for the 30K, and if I can just keep running, then I can beat him. This is my theory, right? So there's a lot of running software that exists in the world. Serious runners will often have very complicated running plans, right? My friend has a professional running coach that he pays several $100s a month to like review his runs and give him plans. Or there is SaaS software you can use that will look at your Garmin data and suggest plans for you. Is anyone in the room like really into running? Like do you have like a target marathon time that you're training for right now? Yeah. So the running plan that he might want would be very different than mine, right? He has gone on a vacation centered around running, and I am trying to get myself away from the computer and get out and exercise. So this tool wasn't for me, right? There's also this Couch to 5K is another running plan for a different set of people. People who they just want to start running. And so the plan is based around like, I'm going to start walking and then gradually build up to running. So the two approaches, basically, neither one is a fit for me. So also, I just wanted to build my own. So I had this idea, build my own running app. All it needs to do is keep me consistently running, and then I'll beat Malcolm, and then I'll feel better about the world. But the cool thing that happened as I built this that I'm going to share is just like building personal software is really easy now. Like I was using Claude Code for a lot of this, and I always like to build side projects, but like I rarely would ever get them complete before I started like a new one. But now in this new world of agentic coding, like it was actually pretty attainable. So this is my vague plan for my AI running coach, just in some Python pseudocode, right? So every morning at 6 a.m., it will get my training plan, check out my runs this week, and then it will send me a Slack message saying like, hey, according to your plan, you should be running today. So this kind of keep me on track, right? Today, this is the run you should be doing. And then on the other side of it, I have a Strava webhook, right? So I have a running watch here. I'm sure that you do because you're going on running vacations. Right after this, yeah. See, he's better than me. Anyways, Strava, if you're not familiar, it's like a backend. It's a social network, but it's also, for these purposes, like a backend for all my running data that comes from my watch or from whatever runs I take. So I can register a webhook with it, have it call my running coach, so that whenever I do a run, my running coach, the AI will get my run that I just did, and it can evaluate it as per my plan, right? Basically, the most important thing it does is kind of say like, attaboy, good job, right? You completed a run, or if I didn't follow the plan, maybe it can offer me some correction. So that's the plan, right? The architecture is kind of like this. We have Strava, and it's going to call a Lambda. The Lambda is going to store some of my data in DynamoDB, and then it's going to post a message to Slack. The message will be written using an LLM. And then I use EventBridge as like a cron for that early morning reminder. So I was being asked before if this is like a self-hosted project. I really actually did not want to have the operational burden of keeping something running on a server I managed. So this is all on AWS, and it's running in a Lambda. And it runs so infrequently that it costs me, like I get the bill every month from AWS that's like 0.01. Which is nice. I'm also cheap, I guess is one of my themes here. A lot of people are building these like open cloud instances, and they're buying a MacBook or a Mac Mini to run this on, and I'm, just living on the free tier of AWS, and it's really nice. Okay, but first thing I do is I set up some infrastructure. So this is just some Pulumi code in Python. So I set up an AWS DynamoDB table. I use paper request. I would love to store this information in Postgres, but DynamoDB has this paper request instance that has like a very generous free tier, and so I can use it without having to pay them anything. Then I just have my Python code, sort of like the pseudocode I showed you earlier, and it's going to run inside of a Lambda. So that's this second part, and then I just have a function URL on my Lambda, right? So it's just a URL that I can call, and we'll call my Python code that runs. And because it's a Lambda, it just spins up at that point, does whatever, sends the message to Slack. And so it's never running except when it's processing runs. So it's very like computationally efficient. Yeah, and I also set up this cron using AWS. Apologize for breathing on this. But the beautiful part is it cost me almost nothing. For the LLM, I'm using Grok, where I can host an open weight API. And so my main cost for running this is here. So this is actually I'm trying to see this, it's a bit small. So for January, my cost of running this is 40 cents. And that's about the range. Sometimes it gets higher depending on how many runs I do. But the token cost is pretty low. And this is like something I kind of like to do, which is have a side project that I can host somewhere. I don't have to worry about the operational overhead because I just have it running in one of these cloud accounts. But I try to size it so that it runs within their free tier. So you can do this on most cloud accounts, right? You can use Google Cloud Run, you can do Azure Functions. If you manage to keep the compute small, if your storage is using some of the cheaper services, like you're totally in the free tier, because they're hoping, that you will grow into a bigger thing. It's kind of like free riding off of the corporation spending millions on AWS, and you're just there with my little running app. So the next problem is how to train, right? What will my coach tell me? So there's a lot of different approaches. The one that I find simplest is just working by heart rate zones. So if you're familiar, you have a max heart rate, and you can kind of subdivide from your max heart rate down based on certain physiological dividing lines. And you can split into these 5 zones, and then my approach is a polarized training approach, right? Which is basically you want to spend 80% of your time in zone 2, which is like an easy run pace. It's like at the pace at which you're still running, but you can talk. And then the other 20% is at a very high heart rate. So it's like occasionally running as hard as you can, but mainly just doing easy runs. And this is like evidence-based, very basic training plan that you get the most benefit from a lot of time in this zone 2 area with occasional, really going hard. The next problem though I have is a data problem, because there's 2 types of runs I do. One is, right, I go running with my friend Malcolm, or I run with this Peterborough Trail Running Club, which you can see here in this picture. And that works great. I just use my watch, and then it syncs, and everything's happy. But I'm in Canada, it's currently freezing, and I don't really like running in the winter. So a lot of my running actually takes place on my Peloton tread that you can see right here. So this is me in the basement on the Peloton tread. I try to do this after work, get me away from the computer. Peloton has a lot of great classes, but what I tend to do is watch Stranger Things and then run on the treadmill, which is awesome. You can see I've also got this pedestal where I put my laptop, and a lot of the development of this running coach has been me dictating, fixing things to Claude Code as I'm jogging along, which I think is really just time efficient. So one of the principles I had to learn as I was building this is when to lean on an LLM that's very good at kind of generic thinking tasks, and when to actually write specific code. So I came up with this principle to guide me that I called cognitive delegation, which I think I got from somebody else online but adapted, which is if you're doing something very specific, where it's easy to write ifs, I just write code, right? But if I'm doing something very soft, like providing coaching advice, then I lean on the LLM, right? If I need to decide based on the notes if this was a good effort or a bad effort, you use the LLM. But if I need to do something more specific, like figure out how many minutes we're in this run, I just parse the running file. That led me to this problem. The Peloton does not have an API. So my Peloton tread, there's no way to get the data out. I can sync it to Strava, but they only send basically the timing data. They don't send the incline. The heart rate comes from my watch, and it's hard to sync. So this is a problem that maybe an LLM could solve, but I just solved with code. Because things can't really not have an API, right? When I log in and I see my Peloton data, it's clearly there. And if you dig a little deeper in theory, I guess one thing to say before this is that Peloton is a great product, and if they're watching this, I think this is still in the spirit of the terms and conditions, if not, properly allowed by it. If you go to your Peloton app and you log in, you could see it's an auth0 request and that they give you back some JWT token. Technically, once you have a JWT token, you do have an API, right? Because you can take that JWT token, you can write it out, save it in S3, and then your app, your LLM can use that to access the site. So In theory, I take the refresh token, I save it to S3, I make my running Lambda able to take down that JWT, hit the auth0 endpoint, refresh the credentials, and now it can act as me and retrieve my data. So now this is my new process, right? I do a run. It goes to Strava. Strava calls my Lambda. Lambda will check, is this an indoor run or an outdoor run? If it's an outdoor run, it goes, or sorry, if it's an indoor run, it goes to Peloton, it impersonates me, grabs that data. Then we need to form this into something useful for the coach to understand. So I have like a columnar-based format for the stream of data that you can get from a watch or from a treadmill. So at 1 second sample intervals, I just have all the data that the various devices I use are providing, right? So I have every second, I have a heart rate, I have a speed in meters per second, foot cadence, power, etc., as well as the sources, right? And then I roll this up, breaking it down into zones. So how much time did I spend in each heart rate zone? How long am I working at things? This is just another example of this cognitive delegation concept that I found really helpful. Like I could give the raw run information to the LLM to analyze, but I found it actually a lot better to provide my own summarization and roll-ups and provide the LLM like a summary view that actually a running coach might want. Right? So what the coach, the LLM ends up seeing is something more summarized, like the following. Right? It can see here that in my, right, I've done 3 activities this week, total running time, 4 hours, 15 minutes, and then it has the zone breakdowns, and then it kind of will break down each of the activities as well as recent history. So the LLM gets this as input. I'm breathing on this with my nose. And then in its prompt, it also gets information about my training plan, right? So I put together a training plan. It tracks through the whole year up until the coming race with varying stages, right? In the fall, it was just building up the amount of time. In the winter, where I now am, it was increasing the length of my long runs, and so on and so forth. So each time I run, and it's providing me feedback, it gets my running plan, it gets what I'm doing, and then it acts as a coach, providing me input. And then what it generates is, each morning, it gives me an updated plan. Here's what you should be doing, right? And this is the format I kind of came up with that I like in the out column here. So I have MVW, which I call like the minimum viable week. So each week I want to do 3 runs, plus 1 long run, plus a strength session. And so it will map out the week and suggest what I should do each day. And you can see here, right, I'm on Friday, and I've just finished 1 49-minute run. And it's suggesting like, okay, here's what you should do Saturday and Sunday in order to hit your plan. So it looks like this in Slack, right? I have just completed a run, and then I get a Slack message coming in, and the Slack message kind of summarizes the run, and it says like, here's where you are on the plan, right? You can see the line that says just now, if this isn't too small to read, right? Just now this happened, and then here's the plan for the rest of the week, and then the most important part is kind of the coaching feedback it provides me at the bottom. So that's post-run. And I just found this very motivating to tell me after I've done something good, like, hey buddy, good job. Like, here's your plan, and you've worked towards it. I actually played around a lot with the best way to get the LLM to respond to me, that it would be motivational. Like, I tried this kind of like David Goggins approach, where it was like, you gotta be hardcore, like, go buddy. I didn't really enjoy being yelled at in caps from a Slack bot. I tried like very overly positive, like, look at you, you're succeeding. That I didn't like either. What I found was most motivational for me was just very factual information. But like, hey, here's your plan, and you're working towards it, and you're a little bit faster now than you were before, or a little bit slower from a month ago. That actually I found quite motivational. The other important thing was just that the LLM can adjust the plan on the fly. Like I kind of think of this like a GPS, right? When you're driving in a GPS and you make a wrong turn, it doesn't like criticize you for having made a mistake. It just like adjusts and gives you a new plan right away. So on Monday, right, it will post me a message and say like, hey, here's your plan. You're gonna do this Monday, this Tuesday, this Thursday, etc. But then on Tuesday, after I've done nothing on Monday, it just gives me a new plan. It doesn't criticize me for not doing Monday. Like, here's the new plan. And then after not doing a run for several days, which does happen, then it stops saying like, hey, here's your plan. There's no way you can complete it this week. Instead, it says like, hey, how's it going? You haven't run in 3 days. Maybe do that. And the way I do this is I have in the prompt some information about kind of establishing my motivations. So I just have this, hey, note, this is literally from the prompt I use. You note if the motivation is considered fragile, right? So if I'm in a fragile motivation state, then it has a different tone that it replies with, and it doesn't include the progress, and it doesn't include all these preambles. It just says like, hey, you haven't run in a while. What's up with that? And then I have a further stage, which is low motivation, where I haven't run in a week, like 5+ days. And in that case, it just comes up with, what's the term? It won't even say that, hey, you should go for a run. It'll say like, hey, you like watching shows on your treadmill. I mean, what shows might be interesting for you? Like, it's like kind of backing off, and it's fun to write prompts that are kind of trying to motivate yourself, right? Because it's a little bit like trying to psych yourself out. But the secret ingredient that actually made this work, and I think works for all these kind of personal projects, is intention stacking, which is this idea from psychology research that if you want to do something, you can combine it with something you really like to do. And if you kind of glue those two together, then you're more likely to do them. So in my case, that's just like, I like to build weird things as like side projects, right? I'm always building some little thing on my computer. And by making that little thing I was building actually a running coach, it made me more motivated to run, because I would be like, oh, I did a run and something failed, and then I fix it, and I want to do another run to see what happens when I go back through that pipeline, or it has a problem, handling the heart rate at a certain level. And so, hey, I want to do another long run to see if it gives proper feedback on that now. So the next thing that I added, because the interesting part about a personal project is like, you can just keep adding features, right? There is no project manager telling me, whether something should be a priority or not. It's just everything that I want gets in this. So I did, in fact, add chat, right? So it's posting a message saying like, hey, your run did good. And then in Slack on my phone, while I'm catching my breath after, I will often just like voice dictate how things went, especially if things didn't go well. I tried to include a screenshot, but my Slack is the free version, and after 90 days, it gets rid of the history. So I've recreated it here. A couple weeks ago, it was a Sunday. I had lots of free time, and I also had neither completed my long run nor my strength session. And so I thought, hey, let's do those both at once. So I did my long run, and then I did my strength session, which, as planned, was this kind of Metcon activity involving like dumbbell squats and then a lot of lunges. And afterwards, I was like, oh my God, that was super hard. My legs are struggling. So I put that as a message. And then the next day, when I woke up, I almost fell down the stairs because my quads were so bad that like I could barely go downhill. And so I put another message in, and I said like, I'm having trouble walking. But the cool feature I added was when we have this chat back and forth with my coach, which I'll demonstrate to you, it will store things that it finds out about my training into a S3 document. And then that S3 document will end up in the context when it prompts. So once I had this conversation, it added to its S3 prompt that you should not do a leg strength day on the same day as your longest run. Like, that's just a bad idea. And that meant, right, it kind of works like this. So I have the chat in Slack. The Lambda adds that to this context, which is then used by the LLM. But the cool thing was, just having that conversation meant now every time it's generating a plan, it will never tell me to do those two things on the same day. In fact, it often tells me not to do them on the same day, like even if it's not relevant, which is another problem. But the customization was super cool. Like, this was a cool moment for me, where I'm like, this software is so simple. It's like not the smartest LLM in the world. It's just a bunch of Python code calling various things. And here it is learning my training plan, learning what I need to happen. And every time I'm providing it feedback, it's learning more about me and customizing things more. The other thing I learned was something I call intent-guided prompting. So once I started to add all these logs about what worked well for me, the LLM just started getting very verbose, right? Because it went from having a simple prompt to having a prompt that has like 800 words of things about what Adam should do. And so it started thinking like, I need to provide him, a small essay every day about how he should do his running. So I started with just adding rules, like respond in 2 sentences or less, and don't ask questions unless whatever. And it was a battle that I couldn't win. Like every time you add a do or do not rule, I don't know if you've had this problem with your Claude MD. Every do and do not rule, the more you add, the less likely it is to follow them all or that they disagree with each other. So the thing that I found that worked really well is what I call intent-guided prompting. So instead of giving specific rules, I try to write down the principles. The same way, if you're trying to give somebody a task to complete, it makes sense to tell them, what's the goal here? Instead of giving them, do this, do that, don't do that. What are they trying to accomplish? So instead of all these rules, I would just say, be concise and encouraging and honest. When uncertain, ask one focused question. And then I can get rid of a lot of rules, and it's using its own guidance to decide what to do. The next part of that is giving examples. So if I can provide hey, under this circumstance, here's a good response, it can learn and pattern itself off that. LLMs are really great at copying, a writing style. Here's the actual prompt. So it's a little bit abbreviated, but it just says, you're an encouraging and phase-aware running coach. The phase-aware is because I have a plan with multi-months. And then it has the principles, and then it has just some examples of responses. And I actually have some where I say, don't, a negative example as well. If it's too verbose, I can put an example and say, don't do that. And then I also have this function calling. So when I'm chatting with it, it will save these reflections. But the time that this really, the time when I really was like, this is cool, was, it pings me in the morning, it's like, you gotta do a run. I didn't really want to, and then I did do a run. And I was watching Stranger Things, which I had never watched before, and there's 5 seasons of it. And it was just my favorite thing. Once I would get on the treadmill and I'd start watching Stranger Things, I just wanted to keep running because I wanted to see what was happening. And so I put that in my notes. I was like, I didn't want to run, but now I just want to keep running because I want to find out what happens in Stranger Things. And then the next day, the coach pings me in the morning and it's like, hey, today after work, jump on the treadmill and remember to keep watching Stranger Things. And I was like, yeah, no, I do want. I want to find out what's happening with those demogorgons. And this was watching a fun TV show on the treadmill, I think, is my big unlock. But I only learned it because of the of the software taking my notes and feeding them back to me. What else? I also added some health tracking. Oh, another problem I had was in Slack. So this is all working in Slack. If I send a message to my bot, it has 3 seconds to respond. Otherwise, Slack considers it a timeout and they send the request again. And they will just keep doing that, hammering your Lambda with repeated requests. I could never figure out how to stream Lambda results back to Slack. So I have to wait until the entire LLM response is finished to get it back. But in the meantime, it's timing out and it's sending off more requests. So I came up with this strategy of I can have the Lambda call itself. Another option might be a queue. But basically, if I send a message to my Slack bot, it will respond with thinking ... and then it will call itself so that it has a longer timeout period. And when it gets its actual LLM response, it will edit it and put it in place. And that way I can sidestep the Slack timeout issue. The other issue I had also relates to time, which is just LLMs are slow, right? And if you're in ChatGPT and you're chatting and it streams the response, it might not be too bad. But you have a Lambda and you send a message to it and it needs to wake up, and then it's doing this big response and sending you it all back. It just started to lose that feel of like, oh, I'm actually chatting with something. And so I started using this open weight model, GPT OSS 120B, which you can get from Grok and many other places. But the cool thing was Grok has a very fast endpoint, where OpenAI will do like 50 to 100 tokens per second. On Grok, you can get 500 tokens per second. And so the response that might take 3 minutes on GPT-5, on this model, I can get it in like a couple of seconds. And it just really makes it feel that much more interactive. Some other things. Yeah, let me show you some of this. So this is a Slack channel for my podcast, and I'm in here all the time. That's why I was like, hey, I want to do this in Slack, because I'm always in the Slack channel. Each message I'll see, each day I'll see there's a new message and I'll want to read it. And so this is my momentum bot. You can see here, I also have this Horizon bot that does things. But a new problem I've just discovered since coming to California is it does not understand time zones. So my 6 a.m. message is currently coming in at 3 a.m. But here's an example of the message. Right, so earlier this week it said, hey, your last run was 3 days ago. Yeah, how's your back? Because my back was hurting from the plane. And then I've moved on from watching Stranger Things. I finished season 5. It was super good. I don't know if anybody else is into Stranger Things, but good stuff. So now I'm on to watching Dirk Gently. So it says like, hey, maybe do your long run, and you can watch Dirk Gently. And it has some buttons here. So if I want to see my plan, you can see it quickly puts working on plan, and then that's how it avoids the timeout. In the background, it's doing the LLM request. I also have review. Yeah, so here's my plan so far for this week. Right, so I did several long runs. I counted the hike I did with Engen as one of my runs, and I just have this long run left, and then it kind of says, oh, it's saying, oh, you should get on your treadmill and just watch a movie for your long run. That's not going to work because my treadmill did not come with me. So I can say like, I don't have my treadmill. I'm in Southern California. This is my other trick, to just respond with an emoji, so you get a quick response before it times out and you can come back. Oh, it's like, oh, got it. Let's run outdoors. Okay. It's kind of a lame feedback that's not that helpful. We're doing a demo here, buddy. Yeah. Any specific advice about what to do for the run? It's probably going to be like, just run, man. Let's see. It's great that you're ready to get out. Since you don't have a treadmill, let's translate this into a solid outdoor session. Pre-run activity. Oh, my running coach really wants me to do ab exercises because I have some issues with my back, and apparently, I never listen to this advice, by the way. It's always like, yeah, you need to do these dead bug exercises to strengthen your core. I hate doing core. Like, that's not going to happen. Yeah, so here's its advice, right? So this is the type of thing for helping plan my week, and then when I actually do a run, it's a little bit harder to demo, but if you guys will give me an hour to run around the building, and then I'll stop my watch. No, I can just, I'll fake it. So if I call the webhook that Strava normally calls. Yeah, no. I had this idea like, oh, I'll go for a run and then I'll turn the Bluetooth syncing off of my watch so that I could sync it on here, but then like I wanted to listen to my headphones on my phone and I turned it on and I was like, damn, that was part of my plan. Anyways, this is my new plan. So this is basically the call that is made by Strava when a new run comes in. So I'm basically just telling it, hey, there's a new run in Strava. And so it gets the status okay. So this is like the function URL for my webhook, right? And then in the background, it should, once it's done responding, come up with a response here. So, or it may not, and then it will be very anticlimactic. But yeah, adding these buttons was super helpful too, because like, I also added these graphs of, what type of, how I'm building my base running ability. Let's see. Oh, here it is. 2:22 p.m. Yeah, so this is kind of the feedback that I get on each specific run. Nice job getting this done while traveling and without the treadmill. It's clearly responding to our previous chat message. Your effort drifted higher than usual. You quietly hit your 5-hour goal for the week, and here's your running. Yeah, so this is kind of how it works. Let's go back to my slides here. But did it work, right? Like, did I actually get better at running? I pulled some graphs. So this is a graph of me historically, like the weekly training volume in minutes. And there is like a spike back in November 2024. But besides that, I'm a bit above that. But then I decided to graph it. Like, the real problem I'm having is consistency. So when I graph based on consistency, the weeks where I never run are now virtually gone, right? Where in the past, some weeks I would be really in and I would get running. Some weeks I wouldn't. Now I'm consistently running. And when I compare post-app to pre-app, right? The number of non-zero weeks is way better. The weeks with 3+ activities is way better. And my average minutes has climbed. But the cool thing, I think, with all this is it's a personal app, right? Like, everything is just specifically built for me. Netflix is personalized. It will always put the Stranger Things up there and tell me to watch it. But this is just actually just very specifically meant for my needs, right? I'm not going to open source it. It only does Atom things. It's only useful for people who, have a treadmill and a Strava watch and whatever. But it's so possible to build things like this now, right? You can have a specific use case and build software for yourself, right? The reason I was able to get this done is sort of just leaning into coding agents, leading into my own passion, and just not worrying about building something that could be used, by lots of people. It only talks in Slack because that's what I wanted to use, right? It only, does Strava and Peloton because that's all I cared about. It doesn't have complicated weightlifting stuff because I hate to do ab exercises or whatever. But I think it's cool that you can build this type of stuff, right? I actually don't chat to the app very much. It's actually consuming data that I produce in the world, right, and providing feedback to me. And the feedback is useful, but I don't actually have to talk to it that much. And there seems like there's so many cases like that where there's information out there that you're generating. And there used to be this big like quantified self movement where I could dig through all my data and find things. But now you can actually use the intelligence on demand of an LLM to do this type of analysis, right? I have this Aura ring that I don't use that much because I never found it super useful. But maybe I should throw an AI at it and see. Maybe there's useful information about my sleeping in there. Maybe the problem is that the UI they have is very generic for everybody, right? And that the important metrics for myself are very specific. So that's kind of the cool thing I learned from this is like you can build something just for yourself, right? If it's like a meal planning app or music practice or sleep or journaling, like you can have things in your life where you want to accomplish something and lean on coding agents, lean on some free cloud tier stuff and build the things that work for you. That's what I think is awesome. You can just, hey, what's something where if somebody was paying attention to it and giving me feedback on it, like it would improve my life, and then can I just roll that myself? So I don't know if I'm going to beat Malcolm, though. Like it's still a little bit in the air. But definitely, I'm running more. If that's sufficient or not enough to beat him, we won't know until Canada's shortest ultramarathon next September. But if you'd like to, you can come and join me and see. Otherwise, I'll report back. Yeah, we have some questions. Wow.
Let me bring this to you so we can get any questions on any recordings that we have.
Sorry, I missed the start of your speech. Do you use a Garmin watch?
It's Koros.
Coros, okay. I was trying to pull the Garmin API, but they're rather restrictive. I guess they only really let you sign up if you're a company, is my understanding.
Yeah, so I actually get the data from Strava. Like I have my watch app go to Strava. I think that would work for Garmin as well. But also, if you saw my Peloton slide, it's very possible to reverse engineer these if you ignore the terms and conditions.
Okay, so I actually have a question. So being a Zillennial, I'm kind of at the intersection of being a Gen Z and a millennial. For just context, 97 through 99 is Zillennials. So my question is, all through TikTok, so I'm the TikTok generation. I look at TikTok for everything, whether it's recipes or restaurants, etc. Even career advice, I look at TikTok. So right now on TikTok, what has been going crazy is, as you mentioned, the Apple Minis and using Clawbot.
Yeah.
And as much people are giving money, like they're giving credit cards to Clawbot and telling Clawbot, make my life better, and just letting it have access to all the data. And so my question is kind of, what are your thoughts on that? I know it's a huge security risk, but they're encouraging people are buying the Apple Minis, going out, buying it, and then using Clawbot. I do like large learning models. I have ChatGPT Pro, I use Gemini, and Grok, and I've utilized them. And I like them, but they're not always accurate. So I have some hesitations about Clawbot and the usability. I don't know anyone personally who uses Clawbot. I've just seen people online.
Yeah. My colleague here, Engen, is pretty hot on his Clawbot, playing around with it, but I don't think he's giving it his credit card. But you know, if I had started building this right now, maybe I would take a look at Clawbot. It didn't exist when I started this project, but the interesting thing about it is it seems to consume a lot of tokens. Yeah, there's obvious security problems, and I think that some of the way it's used kind of violates the thing I put about cognitive delegation. Like here, I'm very much doing the coding things just in good old-fashioned, you know, Python and Go, going out to the API and putting it in a file, and then using the LLM for the judgment. Where I think, you know, Clawbot has layers of using agents to do things that could be just written as a straightforward program. So that's like one of my objections, just because like I actually do like code. I don't think everything should be just like layers of LLMs trying to figure out how to do things. But yeah, don't give it your credit card also.
You mentioned this term called quantified self.
Yeah.
I was wondering if that's an established, you know, concept and where it came from. And I do see that a lot of things are made possible now with LLMs, and it's not just because you're using them to read your data, but you're using them to maybe write the programs too. You know, like wearables, for example, a lot of promise before. Maybe we need to revisit things now because we have this glue that kind of can make the projects happen.
Yeah, I don't know when quantified self started, but it's not an LLM thing. It was like people who were really into data, and they would be like, I'm going to track every meal I eat, and oh, look at that, if I have artichokes, then I have heartburn. Like they were gathering data about their lives and doing analysis on it. And it seemed really cool. Like it's cool to give a talk and you can show all the vegetables and artichoke looks bad. But like that analysis is hard to do, right? But now we have an LLM and we can throw it at this information, right? Like I have a SCaLE, you know, I have a smart scale, you know, and it graphs my weight, but I don't really look at it. But it could be that my AI coach could be hooked up to that and could say like, hey buddy, easy on the potato chips, or whatever.
So I have a 2-for-1. One question is, have you published this on any open source platform for other people? And then the other question I have is, let's say I don't want to pay $1 for Slack and I want to be a little bit more scrappy. Could this also be utilized for, like, let's say WhatsApp, or like a text-free app if that I'm more of a texter?
Yeah, so in terms of open sourcing it, yeah, I struggle with that because it's so weirdly designed for my use case. Maybe there's reusable things in it that I haven't really figured out. In terms of the cost, right, the main cost is just the LLM token usage. So the $1 a month is basically going to the Grok for my token consumption, and I'm basically free riding just on the free plan of an AWS account. I don't think you can get cheaper than that unless you're gonna just like sneak it on a USB drive and try to run it on some computer somewhere without them knowing. But even so, you'll need an LLM. So yeah, I don't know.
All right, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you ever tell your coach that you never do your core exercises?
I don't, no, I don't.
How can you trust him to do the right thing then?
Yeah. It's interesting, like it would be useful to say like, hey, yeah, I don't want to, like I wonder if it could it could be like, hey, stop telling me this if I'm not doing it. Because yeah, usually what I'm doing is just consuming the suggestions that it gives. But yeah, it's a valid point to be like, hey, you know what, if you want me to do abs, suggest one thing, not like a 20-minute ab workout.
So say you don't work out for a while, right? And it's gone through that slew of things, right? At what point does it like start like being like, well, you know, you're not gonna beat them if you don't come back, right? Like,
Yeah.
when does it kind of like trash talk a little bit to kind of get you motivated, or try something different? It doesn't have to be trash talking because that sounds like you don't like that, but like, you know what I mean? Like kind of like trying to motivate you a little bit more than Netflix.
Yeah. So yeah, I mentioned before I did have this like, I don't know if anybody, you guys are familiar with David Goggins. Yeah, so I did try like having that kind of personality that was like really talking down to me and like, get out there, what's wrong with you? Yeah, I did not find it motivational. I didn't try like, yeah, leaning into the Malcolm thing too much. Yeah.
The question was, do you feel like you're improving?
Yeah, I do feel like I'm improving quite a bit, and I did spend a lot of time, because I'm like now, like if you notice from my graph, I had all this old run data, because once I started doing this, I was like, oh, I can pull in all my old run data and start looking through it, and then I was like, well, can I find trends of where I'm improving and not? And I definitely feel like I'm improving, but according to like me and Claude's skills at like machine learning, the signal isn't clear. Like there's so much variety in my day-to-day running, I can't really say like I'm an amount better, but I do feel like I'm doing better. So maybe if I do like the fun run here or there, I can get a new baseline.
So this is, thank you for the talk. This is really meta and weird, this approach you're taking. And you know, you spent the time and engaged with this all to write yourself a program, and then you're lying to it. You know, you could just adjust the prompt to say, hey, if I reject your suggestions, go out and find some other way to motivate me.
Yeah.
But then you could all, I just want to thank you for the talk. It's very interesting. I think it kind of reminds me of maybe like a body hacking community type of approach, but it's made me think a lot. Thanks.
Yeah, you're right. There's an interesting thing where I'm trying to write things to motivate me, but like I'm also aware that I'm writing them, right? So like tricks aren't really going to be the key because I'm the one receiving them. But yeah, thank you. I mean, yeah, that got me through college. Just like, yeah, you lie. Like, I want to sleep in 15, then move back 15. Yeah.
All right. Oh, hey, our vacation. Oh, you had a question.
I did kind of want to know on September 20th, what public site can we go to find out whether or not you beat Malcolm?
Yeah. You're trying to keep me honest, right? Yeah. What's your name? I can add it to the bot to say, like, Dave is going to check your speed. Yeah, if you look for the Monsters of Mazenah race, then they will put out the public chip times, and you'll be able to see, how I did. Yeah, I think I have it here. Whoa, a lot of slides. Yeah, MAZINAW. Yeah, keep me honest, please. Come to the race. You can come run.
So you spoke about latency being one of the major decisions in choosing Grok as your model. Like, how about relevancy? Like, how do you measure the relevancy? Like, did you compare Grok to any of the models, especially for plan generation? Because it's like you're just letting, it's like, hey, you're thinking Grok is the, you're accepting what it is. Was it the best? Were there other options? Like, so how do you measure the relevancy for that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Grok, it's Grok with a Q, by the way. It's not the Elon Musk Grok. It's like a different one. It's confusing. But they host open weight models, and so the model I'm using is it's GPT OSS open weight model. I have tried using various models, and when I had specific rules, like do this, don't do that, I sometimes had trouble, and I had to use a very, like GPT-5 with thinking to figure things out. When I started putting in the intent, like, here's your goal, here's some examples, the results were pretty consistent across models, except when you get to one that's like just not smart enough. Like, there is some complications where it's like, yeah, you shouldn't, okay, we're planning out your week, and you need to do the strength thing on Tuesday, because otherwise you'll, like, when there is complicated constraints, the smarter models are better. But otherwise, this is a much easier task than, like, the agentic coding, right? Like, it didn't take the smartest models to help me out here, actually.
You mean there's plenty of people using ChatGPT for plan generation?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I found that it works fine. But you may have a much more complicated plan with pacing targets and whatever than I myself. Well, thank you, everybody. This is, thanks for watching my talk.
Thank you, Adam.